It is almost time. We are almost there. Infinity Weekend is here. If you saw my top 10 video, well, I said my top 10 decks for Infinity. And unfortunately, guys, when there's only 10 in a video, that means some decks are going to get missed. I do agree. I think decks like Kiwi Birds, like Ruby Amethyst are very good decks in Infinity as well, but they just didn't make my cut into the top 10. Again, you can only fit 10. That's kind of how it works. But at the end of the day, we're all going to have a slight difference of opinions, and that is okay. That is great. That is what the comment section is before. So again, if you have thoughts or comments like those, absolutely let me know down below. I'll be happy to discuss it, because again, that is exactly what the comment section is made for. So thank you to those who opened up discussions on other decks that didn't make it. So with that all being said, I have 4 decks to bring to you guys today, and the first one is my Blurple list. These are all lists that I've been messing around with, obviously, when I'm testing 10 different decks. They're not super in-depth, thorough testing, right? And part of that being, well, I mean, we got some box tournaments nearby for Infinity Weekend, but it's a participation promo. It's not like it's a case tournament or set championships where you have to get top 8 to get the promo. It's a participation promo. So I haven't felt the need to go super in-depth as we get closer to Indianapolis, absolutely, but we got a couple more sets to release before then, so a lot could change for Infinity. But as we get closer to Indianapolis, you can count on the fact that the decks that I showcase at that point will be much more in-depth, much more thorough, and way more testing invested. However, I would feel comfortable bringing all 4 of these decks to an Infinity Weekend event, and the first one is being Blurple. So I like Blurple in the fact that it can go against aggressive decks like Amber Steel, and I'm not saying that you're going to beat Amber Steel all the time. I'm not saying you're even going to win 50% of those matchups, but when we look back at like set 7, set 8, I actually liked the Blurple matchup into it, and that was due in part to things like your Madam Mim Fox, obviously Crab helping, because then your Tipo can take out a Daisy too, like you can go on curve, and I know Crab on curve isn't the greatest thing, but versus Amber Steel aggro, guess what? I'd rather go Crab on 3 than I would Genie or Madam Mim Elephant, personally. But you have other things like Popsicle, Pop Popsicle, play Bell. Now you have a 3 strength character on turn 1. You still have Rafiki as a challenger on turn 1. You have Shift Elsa. Like, Shift Elsa was insane. I had some matchups at set championships back then where the one game I was down 16-0, and it got to a point where I ended up winning 20-17 because I just got to a point where I had Elsa's and Hades and bounce cards in my hand, and my opponent just could not stick a character to save himself. But lots of different things that the deck has going for itself, such as Let It Go is back. You have Bell and Shift Bell, which means like you can go turn 1 Bell, turn 2 sing Friends on the Other Side, turn 3 even if you miss ramp, turn 3 you can Shift Bell, sing Let It Go against these aggressive decks. There's so many different play lines that Blurple has, and I really, really like that. But then when you look at like Blue Steel or Red Blue, these slower decks, a card that, well, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know how much I love Queen's Castle. This card is the MVP, hands down. I've actually always enjoyed the Red-Blue matchup. I've always felt it was favored towards Blurple, even when everyone said, nope, data doesn't support it, players don't agree with it, it's not true. And then I'm like, well, yeah, but if you look at everybody's deck list, it's not close to what I'm playing, and I think that my deck actually goes pretty well into those. And I'm not saying you're going to win all of them, but if you can stick like Queen's Castle on turn 3 versus those slower decks like that, especially if they don't hit like Maui on curve or such, that Queen's Castle is going to generate you so much advantage. In addition to that, then you just start moving characters there on the next turn, and then you just start drawing a bunch of cards, and you're going to be in a really good position. So I absolutely love Queen's Castle. Like I said, Blurple, I think it just has toolbox and consistency to deal with the quicker decks, and you can actually go under some of these slower decks. And like I said, the Popsicle Bell playline is so nice because your Friends on the Other Side, and even your Let It Go, or not Let It Go, you're Into the Unknown. If you want to play Tamatoa because of Popsicle, it's a nice little draw engine, recursive that you can do, and the majority of players did it. I always felt like I was playing a worse version of Red Blue when I was focused on the Tamatoas and things like that, because we have genies, we have friends on the other side, we have Queen's Castle, we have other draw engines that I felt Tamatoa was always less needed, and I always felt like I was playing a bad Red Blue when I was playing that. And again, all the people playing Tamatoa were saying how bad the Red Blue matchup was, and I'm like, well, you're playing a worse version of it. I think that's part of it. And the concession is there's probably other matchups where my version was suffering, where their version was much better, and that's the give and take. What decks do you plan to play against is what it ends up coming down to. But I will have all 4 of these decks also linked down below to Dreamborn if you want to go check out those lists, copy and paste it, export it into Lorcanito or anywhere else, do all that kind of good stuff. But the next deck is going to be Jafar, another deck that I absolutely love playing. It's so fun, it's so gimmicky, I actually was going to even include the Monstro and the Great Illuminary in here because, for those who don't know, and obviously Zan Syed had his Amber Amethyst loop deck, but when the Great Illuminary was first announced, everyone's like, oh, if you have Jafar exerted, Monstro in the Illuminary, like you get Monstro down next turn, you play Illuminary, you can even then shift Jafar. So I'm lots of words going really fast. You have a little Jafar on board, sure. You get to 8 ink, you play Monstro. The following turn, you can shift Jafar for 5, play your Illuminary for 2, move your Monstro for 1. That's still the 8. You played Monstro, you have 8. You can do 8 the next turn. So you don't have to stick all these cards down early. If you have multiple Jafars on board, they have to clear both. So you have at least one little Jafar on board. You get Monstro on board. The next turn, you shift Jafar, you play location, you move Monstro to location. You can quest or sing your Jafar. Does not matter because you're going to create a true infinite loop here. I know the other one is technically infinite too. It's with the songs and all the different one-offs and pieces, and great. This one is just those 3 cards. So you get your Jafar exerted, Monstro's at the location. Now you exert your Monstro, you draw a card, you get a lore from your Jafar. Monstro lets you discard the card and ready himself. Now you exert him, draw a card, gain your lore, discard the card, ready himself, and it's truly an infinite loop until you run out of cards in your deck, and you get a lore for every single card that's left in your deck. Assuming you have at least 20 cards, you will just loop and win the game that way. However, it felt too gimmicky, and I felt that an 8 cost combo in this deck was just not good enough. I had messed around with it in Blurple because if you can ramp hard and do it on like turn 5 or 6, turn 5 wasn't really happening, but I was able to get like Monstro down on turn 5, but then you're hitting like super specific play lines and funneling right into it. I don't like those kind of strategies. I don't like glass cannon-y decks. They can be fun, don't get me wrong, they can be a lot of fun, but I don't like the glass cannon style strategies, so I ended up not running it in Blurple either. As fun as it would be, I didn't feel like it was the right call. But with Jafar Wheels, so what I really liked to do with this deck is if you can hit like the Robin Hood or Tinkerbell shift lines on 3 or 4, because it allows you to have another 5 cost singer on board. And then on turn 5, you shift your Jafar, you sing A Whole New World with your Jafar, you obviously pitch what's left in your hand, draw 7 new cards, he's exerted, you get 7 lore. But then if you draw into another copy of A Whole New World, your Robin Hood or your Tinkerbell can exert to sing that copy of it, and then you get another 7 lore, and that's 14 lore in 1 turn. So it actually feels really kind of broken, and I've always liked that playline. In addition to that, you have Little Tinkerbell, which helps you against those red-blue, blue-steel style decks. So turn 2, you have like Smee as a aggressive push, a threat. You get a 1 cost on 1, go for Smee on 2, Tinkerbell or Jafar on 3. So now you got multiple multi-questers down, and then either you can double up characters on 4, or you can come back with Genie on 4. It's just another multi-questing threat that your opponent's going to have to deal with to be able to close this out. So you can get going very quickly. We used to play the lamp in the deck. I felt the tempo disruption wasn't as needed in where this format is at right now, so I went with Woodchuck's Guidebook instead as a draw 2 because it's less restrictive on what you need. So just playing this to help the consistency to get to all the pieces that we need at the end of the day. Another thing you can do against some of those slower decks, like especially Be Prepared, right? Like Be Prep is the card that just blows this whole strategy out of the water. Well, if you get Gantu down, they have to pay 9 to play their Be Prep. and they can't sing it until the fall, like after your next turn. They can't exert to sing a song, and they have to pay 2 extra to play it. So if you stick Gantu down, it can help protect your combo, your pieces, all that stuff a little bit longer. So that's obviously going to be really good for you as well. You play him on 4, stops your opponent, then you can go ahead, shift on 5, and then just start doing all your fun combos. In addition to that, the Beyond the Horizon. So if your opponent is playing very high roll, they have a lot of cards, they've been kind of molding their hand into what they want, especially if you have Jafar. Jafar can sing it on his own, and you force your opponent to discard their hand too, and now they're just taking complete RNG. What are they going to hit off the top? Their hand is no longer molded, and sometimes, yes, you will help them. I've had it help me before too, but more often than not, the hand that they have is better than the hand that they end up drawing. So I do like the Beyond the Horizon as another way to disrupt those slower decks. Versus the quicker style decks, we have Madam Mim in there to give the extra strength for challenging, but also Jafar and Smee both have 3 strength as 2 cost cards, and then the 3 cost Jafar giving challenger +2 to one of your characters, helping in that regard, having 3 strength, Pete with 3 strength, and then you also have like Shift Robin Hood, Shift Tinkerbell. You have these shift lines to get aggressive with those other aggressive decks, and you just take them on challenging head to head. I felt that the Strength of the Raging Fire was unneeded. That was really the only damage song that I would consider playing in the deck. I don't want Storm because of the unique ability, and I felt like Zeus is just not needed. And Thunderbolt, you're not going to play Thunderbolt without Zeus unless you're playing like some type of crazy deity deck, which moves us into the next deck, and that is Chernadogs. The 4 I'm showing you today are actually like the 4 decks that I would truly consider, just because they're 4 decks I love playing. I'm not saying they're the 4 best decks, but they're 4 decks that I've played and that I absolutely love to play. So these are kind of my 4 decks. Tomorrow I'll have 4 more, also very competitive decks for you guys, but they're not really decks that I enjoy playing, but they're good decks, and a lot of players do enjoy them. So I wanted to still bring that to you. So Chernadogs, it's essentially what Dogs is right now, except when you're fueling up from your Bobby, from your you can play the new Scrooge, the 2 cost. I'm not, just with unique ability, and just I wanted the deck to just streamline as good as possible. But any of those draw discard ability style cards, and then you also have the Tramp where you draw a whole bunch of cards, discard a whole bunch of cards, and then you can play your Chernabog. And a lot of the times this deck, you can play your Chernabog for free, which just feels absolutely broken being a 9/9/3 quester. Like, that's insane. B-Prep kills it. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot that takes it out. There's a few cards, right? Like Hades also. Like, there are cards that take it out, Let It Go, but there's not a ton of them in the current game. Amber Steel Aggro is still very popular. It's actually the most popular deck in Infinity format, so I felt like leaving Under the Sea in there was mandatory. It's kind of like the card that you use against that deck, and that's why I think, like, especially in set 9 meta, that this deck did so good against Amber Steel. I felt like it was actually favored because of Under the Sea, and the mirror matches a lot of time come down to who can see it first. So the 1-drops, there's not a whole lot of crazy things. I know I'm not going card by card with these. If you have questions, just ask me below. I'm trying to pick out the maybe different choices and explain those. So in some of the tops that we've seen from this deck, Cloud Kicker has been played because the tempo disruption, bouncing a character, can be good, but I felt like Finnick has 1 less strength. That's the difference between the two. But Finnick, you can play it for 1, pay 2, so essentially the 3 cost of kit, and bounce a 2 strength or less character to your opponent's hand. So it does the same thing, but it has 1 less strength. And in addition to that, though, if you're not trying to disrupt your opponent's tempo, you can just play it for 1 cost. You don't have to pay 3. You don't have to pay the additional 2. So for that reason, I felt like Finnick was a much better option than Cloud Kicker was, because you can just play it as a 1-cost character and double up with other characters if you're not going for that tempo disruption. So I liked Finnick a lot more than Cloud Kicker for that reason. And then other things like the Little Webby. Webby versus Merryweather. So they're both kind of different, right? Like Merryweather, if you play your 0/3 lady, the dual link one on turn 1, Turn 2, you can play Merryweather for 1 ink, which triggers Lady, 1 strength, and then also triggers Merryweather. Merryweather, then you pay an ink, and you give 2 strength to Lady, which gives her 3 strength, which means she quests for 3 lore. So you do that. That's great. Whereas Webby, you play her, which triggers your Lady and triggers your Webby. Webby gives Lady the 1 strength, so now Lady has 2 strength. So in that regard, it still needs 1 more. But we play so many 1-cost characters to go like Lady on 1, Webby plus another character on 2 is not hard to do. And you can actually even go Tramp at that point too. Like Tramp is another way because you have Lady, so you play him a little bit cheaper. But I don't like pairing up like Webby and Tramp. It's just redundant. I'd rather save one for the next turn. So if you can go like Lady on 1 and then come back with like Daisy Webby on 2, that's insanely strong because now you're questing for 3, and then you have your Lady, your Webby, and your Daisy on board. So whereas Merryweather does it all on her own and Webby does not, Webby allows you to play a second character in that same turn. So then your board presence is actually getting better. And versus some of these slower decks, that's exactly what you need to be doing. Outside of that, other changes that we have, Piglet. Piglet is a fantastic card in this deck. Like questing for 3 90% of the time. 90% of the time this card is going to be a 2/2/3 quester. Being said, I didn't really know where to make cuts. Cricky's probably a card you could cut. Not getting to that many ink very often, but at the same time, the +3 is actually really kind of cracked. Like the +3 is really good to your whole board because you can trade into an opponent's board so effectively. And then if you have your like Lady, you can go grab 2 of those characters back for free. And Cricky works so well with the way this deck works. We don't have a ton of willpower, but I mean your Daisy has 4, your Tramp has 3, I guess your other Rapunzel would have 5, but your Big Lady has 4, your Cricky has 4, you have 6 on your Big Tramp, you have 9 on Chernabog. Rapunzel's just another draw card. If you don't have your Rapunzel, so I mean she's only like $13 right now, get them way before Indianapolis because she's probably going to be $25-$30 by then. You don't have to play Rapunzel in the deck. It's just she's a really good draw card that also heals your characters and quests for 2 and has 5 willpower. So she just kind of checks all the boxes, but she's truly not needed if you don't really want to play her. And then we move into the last deck for today, and that is going to be Amethyst Emerald, the discard deck. Diablo discard is more or less what we should just call the deck. We play a whole bunch of birds. Diablo discard, dirty birds, whatever we want to call it. You got Diablo and Diablo, and then Ursula. So essentially, again, this being versus the slower decks, you discard them. You don't let them get to their high end. A lot of their uninkables are higher cost cards, so you force them into really weird spots where either they're discarding their bomb cards or they're holding on to them, but they can't get to a point where they can actually play them, from Ursula hitting their B preps or hitting like how far I'll go. I would more often than not, or if I Ursula on 2 and I see B prep and how far I'll go, you 90% of the time hit the how far I'll go, because 1, you know about B prep, so you can play around it as good as possible, and 2, you're going to make them discard quite a bit more before then, so either they're not going to get to the ink to be able to play it, or they're going to discard it next anyway. If you let them get the how far I'll go, 1, they ramp, 2, it's consistency. Now they get to fix their hand, mold it. You do not want them to do that. Make sure you discard the how far I'll go way before you even think about going after the B prep. I know B prep is so tempting, but how far I'll go is a much bigger threat in that early game. You absolutely want to get that card out of their hand. We see the Fox, Crab, and Lewis. These are kind of your cards to combat Amber Steel aggro, Chernadogs, things like that. The Rush, the plus strength, and the forcing with the Reckless. Those are your ways to force your opponent and to beat the aggressive decks. Again, you're going the discard route to beat those higher end decks. And other things you have in there, we have Chip in there where on play your opponent has to discard. We have Pull the Lever where either you get to draw 2 cards or your opponent has to discard a card. And then also once that's in your discard, then the Wrong Lever can pair out by shuffling it back, shuffle one of their characters back, disrupt their board that way. Sudden Chills, Bruno, and especially like Bruno, when you can discard their hand down and then play a Bruno, it's truly just removal because it bounces it, they discard it, it's gone, it's out of there. Just the 2 Prince Johns, though, I think that's more than plenty, because like turn 3, you're against aggressive decks, like you don't want a Prince John. You don't want a Prince John versus aggressive decks on 3, and versus the slower decks, like Pull the Lever's still a great card. Hard Playing Diablo's a great card. Versus these slower decks, you don't have to Prince John. Like Prince John's a good card versus those decks. Don't get me wrong, but you don't have to get to it. He's just like an additional card. But you also have like Genie for draw. You have Diablo for draw. You have Friends on the Other Side for draw. You have Pull the Lever for draw. Like there's a lot of draw that the deck does have. And then Elsa's just too good not to play, really. And Cricky also, kind of like in Chernadogs, where it's just an incredible card to get really good trade value. At the same time, he's less impactful here because you don't really have a way to get those cards back. But we all know how dirty a turn 2 Diablo shift is. Like, especially if you like discard, I don't know, like a Pull the Lever off your Diablo, right? You get Diablo on 1, turn 2, discard Pull the Lever, play Diablo, sing Sudden Chill, and actually you didn't even spend any ink. You could play another Sudden Chill. Now your opponent just discards 2 cards. When they draw for turn, you're drawing for turn. If you have wrong lever, you're going to disrupt their whole tempo because you have pulled a lever in your discard now. Like, the deck has so many synergies going for it that it's a really, really fun deck to play. And if I'm looking at like discard deck, I prefer to play this over like Emerald Steel and over frickin' Amber Emerald by far. I don't even know anyone with a decency who would actually want to play that deck. I'm just kidding. I had to say something about that because I know Phil's going to watch this and comment and say something about it again like he did on the last video. But for real, Amber Emerald discard is a really scary deck too if you know how to pilot it properly. I think most people just gravitate towards this or Emerald Steel, but that deck is just nasty with Muses and the discard engine and bouncing your own aerial with your Muses. It gets gross pretty quickly. But these are 4 decks that I would probably lean into playing. Like, again, these are kind of the 4 decks I would like to play. Tomorrow I will have 4 more competitive decks that I just don't enjoy as much, but if you like them, absolutely, hopefully they help. All the links are down below towards Dreamborn for all of these. So thank you guys for watching. As always, like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Take care.